What's going on, Soul Nation? Ginger Prime here, and we're just 3 weeks away from the launch of Outriders, and I see a lot of discussion going on Reddit and then also in the comments of these videos. It's I wanted to take a little bit of time and highlight, give some thoughts on future DLC plans. If you guys haven't seen Vulcan's interview, I'll include a link in the description, but he got to sit down with the devs and ask them some questions, and honestly, one of the things that has me so excited about Outriders is just how transparent and how communicative, that's a fun word, that people can fly have been in this whole process. So that's going to be the kind of the majority of this video, and I'd love to know your thoughts. So I'm just going to give some of my ideas. I'm sure you have your own. I'd love to see what you guys think about what you would expect or hope for future DLC if that comes. To be completely clear, the devs continue to hammer home that they do not have future DLC plans. They're waiting to see how the demand goes before they start promising us a theoretical future. And honestly, especially after a lot of high-profile failures that have occurred over the last couple years in the looter space, I'm very thrilled and excited by that. But also, if you guys haven't seen, one of the things that's playing right now is a new animatic talking about what happened to Earth. Earth is dead. If you guys are going to want to watch this for yourself, also include a link to that below. You should definitely go check it out. It's pretty exciting. It definitely gets the blood flowing. It definitely builds the hype for Outriders. So, all right, let's talk about what we want to see from DLC or the potential for DLC, while at the same time knowing that there might not be DLC. I have a feeling, especially with 2 million downloads, the demo, people still actively playing the demo, what we've experienced with the game so far, that I'm sure we could potentially see a demand for that. And I really do hope we do, because I'm still farming the demo, personally speaking, and I cannot wait to see and experience more of this game. But I think for me, to start small with like the basics of the basics, I want to see a ping system, an in-game communication ability that we can tag targets, we can mark like areas to watch if things are gonna, like, hey, we know something's coming from over here, be sure to keep your eyes on that. We don't want to let that get too close to us. The reason why I think that would be a huge win, in my opinion, is if you guys, and I got a lot of crap for this, saw my opinion about matchmaking. I find that matchmaking from a game development perspective tends to mean that content has to be evened out to account for the fact that people might not be communicating. So how can you design an encounter where people might not be talking about it? And I think that's where the ping system can come in and fill in that gap, change that, lower the threshold for development, lower that threshold for randoms to be able to jump in and get the content done. Also, I think low-hanging fruit, more difficulty tiers. As power increases, especially if you watch the animatic, like with every kill, we continue to grow stronger. Yes, then absolutely, if we're going to continue to like constantly be refining our builds, our mods, our perks, I think then essentially having more difficulty levels that automatically scale and add in new mechanics and new features of bosses would be really cool to see, obviously, in the long run and the long health of this game. I don't think they need to rush that out right away, and I honestly think that's not even going to be tied to DLC. I think that's something that probably could be switched on. Hey guys, all right, here you go. Here's ultimate level 16 mode or what have you. So that's obviously low-hanging fruit. Let's talk about Horde mode. Let's talk about raids. I think those are typically two ideas that I see brought up a lot. Now, we haven't yet to go hands-on with Expeditions, which is the game's launching end game system. And when we talk about like a Horde mode and a raid system, I think then we have to look at like what is the purpose, because if they want people to be doing a specific piece of content, if you start to subdivide the community, that can end up being kind of a challenge, especially as it relates to matchmaking and being able to funnel people in together to do specific content. Personally speaking, I do love Horde modes. One of the things that I really enjoy about Outriders is coming from a Gears of War background, really enjoying that franchise, that similarity with how some of the gameplay functions when playing this game. And so yes, a Horde mode would be something particular, like awesome. Now, here's the question that I have for you guys right now, because at the end of the day, with Gears 5, they introduced a Horde mode that was kind of like an enhanced version with less rounds. And one of the things that was a difficulty about the 50 round limit was if you ever did matchmaking for 50 rounds, well, turns out usually people would bounce out after like 10 rounds or 20 rounds, whatever that kind of pinnacle threshold of, hey, we've hit this marker, let's go ahead and leave. So what would be that right structure for you? Because I ended up finding myself enjoying kind of that 12 round hyper-focused, more intense gameplay where it would just throw everything it could at you for a shorter amount of period, and it found that groups would stay together because you weren't committing to kind of like a 2-hour net run. That being said, I would also like to see some kind of endless progression system in which whether speedrunners could try this for this, or just from an entertainment from my watching other people play who have more time to see how far down the rabbit hole they can go. So at the core of it, like, I'd love to know your thoughts, because I kind of go back and forth. As a game player in this case, I would definitely shift to the shorter form that has a lot of hyper rewards. And then the question is, how is it ultimately different from what we were seeing with the expansions, with the expeditions endgame system? So obviously, I think you'd want to make it slightly different in that regard. So anyway, I'm definitely pro to see what they'd ultimately introduce to kind of fill in that gap. But I'd like to see them kind of do their own twist on it, so to speak. So that's my thoughts on Horde Zones. Now, the question about raids is ultimately the peak pinnacle kind of content. That's what we've seen in a lot of games, and raids take a lot of work. I think raids would be a great opportunity for them to kind of change up the combat formula and the level design that they have currently we've seen in the demo, and we've seen when they've shown off different expeditions as a part of kind of their PR campaign. Now, what I would say personally is like easily 6 players. I think 6 players where you would double the amount of players on screen. I know the reason why we don't have 4 is because they said it got too busy within the structure. So again, this would be something looking further down the line as a part of DLC to be able to start to introduce some real high pinnacle content that isn't the 3-man content, that isn't something as similar as what we've come to expect. And that's where I think it could be a lot of fun. Now, personally, I would say I'd like to see raids scale just like the current content does, meaning if you bring 6 people, then the raid is going to obviously throw more things at you. But if you want to just raid with 3 people or 4 people, then you have that ability, not having to lock people into a schedule or kind of really make this game more of a job than it is designed to be, a game in that regards. That's kind of one of the reasons why I would personally like to steer clear of seasonal content. I'm fine if they had like in-game events that were like, hey, it's the Christmas season, you can get this cool Outriders Christmas cap or something like that, where it's like, oh yeah, this is something that I'm enjoying playing, but kind of avoiding that FOMO. Here, you got to keep grinding for the next 90 days in this game to stay a part of it. I think that would kind of break the mold that we've seen what they're trying to do and design for the game itself. Now, there would be the concept of seasonal content in terms of like, hey, they're going to launch a new season in which you kind of replay the game a la Diablo. So there's also a different example when it comes down to seasons. Personally speaking, like if we were going to continue to take influence from Diablo, like I really have enjoyed the rift system when we talk about combining that with like the horde mode and maybe even a little bit of raids, kind of sprinkling all these things together, weaving it into kind of a one kind of interesting package would be something ideal. Now, the final thought, that's kind of a content focused thing. The final thought is obviously new classes. We see lots of different elemental types already currently in the game, and we don't necessarily have access to all those powers, except for like, obviously we do have weapons that will do certain things that maybe we can't do just yet. So I'd like to see even more classes and introduced to the game overall alongside those DLCs. I think if they launch DLC, maybe it's got some kind of content package, but it also has a new class to help kind of be excited about, something else that you can level up, have fun, gear out, and kind of add to that overall class balance. It's one of the things that I think they really nail perfectly is the class balance. All 4 classes, I love them all. And it's funny because right now it's like, well, I guess one's going to sit out, but as they add classes, I think essentially you could end up having a little bit more excitement in terms of your builds and how you approach things. Ultimately, we'll see what min-maxers end up doing, if there's going to be a preferred method for doing certain farms. Who knows? Obviously, I think this, because gamers will optimize the fun out of anything, or they can at least. I think it'll be interesting to see how that happens overall. Now, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. Again, go be sure to check out Vulcan's interview if you have not already. It's really awesome, and it gets a lot of that good information. I don't know where my voice went with that. That was weird. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully there was a laugh in there alongside, I guess, this randomness and these thoughts. But more than anything, I'd love to know your thoughts about it. Like DLC, are you hopeful for it? What would you want to see? What would be something that you would be excited to play as a part of DLC for Outriders? Anyway, guys, this next 3 weeks probably going to feel like a long 3 weeks. So hopefully if you're farming the demo, that you get a lot of awesome drops and you're as excited as I am. And don't burn yourself out for April 1st. So we've got a lot to talk about at that point. I'm going to wrap up. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic day. And I hope to see you in my next one. But until then, take care. This video is sponsored by me, Ginger Prime. Hopefully you'll check out my podcast channel, Ginger Gaming Radio, which we have lots of guests, lots of great conversations, and even more highlights. Links are in the description below. Let me know what you think. Thanks.